Hi everyone and welcome back to Tennis Time. So in this week I'm going to reveal the number 17 on the list of the 20 greatest matches of all time. After the Sampras Agassi 2000 Australian Open final, the Vitas Gerulaitis Björn Borg semi-final at Wimbledon from 1977 and the Andre Agassi Patrick Rafter semi-final from Wimbledon from 2001. On number 17, actually there's going to be 17B and 17A. When I've compiled a list of the 20 greatest matches of all time, I realized I have 21, but I felt like I have to keep every match because they're really so good, and I couldn't really make up my mind which one to put above the other. So there is a 17B and a 17A. The 17B is the Rome final. This time it's a non-Grand Slam match, but it's a final. It's the Rome final from 2005. Rafa Nadal playing Guillermo Coria. As I said, it's a 5-set thriller. The match lasted 5 hours and 14 minutes. This time I'm not going to bring you through the whole match and not go set by set. On the other hand, I'm going to put in the description below the link so you can check out the match. But I'm going to reveal because I have to say who the victor was. That was Nadal, and one of the reasons because I've picked this match was given to the fact that it was Nadal's first really big test and big fight where he's come through. At that time, we knew Rafa Nadal was a very promising young player. He's won a few clay court titles before that. He's won one in 2004, and he's won three more before the Rome final in 2005. And he's beaten Guillermo Coria actually 3 weeks prior to the Rome final in the Monte Carlo final in 4 sets. Back then, the Masters Series finals in Europe were played still best of 5. So this was again a best of 5 match in Rome, which Nadal has won. Given the fact that it was really his first big test, remember at that time Rafa Nadal was not a Grand Slam champion. Today, as we know him, he's a 19-time Grand Slam champion and a 12-time French Open champion. So of course it doesn't really particularly seem like a super big deal that he's won that match maybe back in 2005 in a 5-setter against Coria, but back in the day I think it was very much of a big deal. It was the first time he's played Rome and he's won. After pulling off that victory, 2 weeks later he went to the French Open and he won the French Open on his debut. He's the only player to have ever done that. Apart from Mats Wilander. Mats Wilander also won it at the age of 17, but he played the year before in the qualifying rounds. So basically you could make the statement that Wilander has played the French before, but Nadal really hasn't. He hasn't played the qualifying rounds the year before. He wasn't in the main draw. He would have been in the main draw in 2004 if he could have played, but he didn't, since he was injured at the time. So imagine Coria in 2005 is a player who's played plenty of Masters finals. He's won a few, and he's the previous year's French Open finalist. So basically he was almost like a Grand Slam champion. In 2004, when he played the French Open final against Gaston Gaudier with 2 sets to love up, he got tight, maybe a little bit injured, and ultimately lost the match in 5 sets. So Coria was a well-established clay courter. If you would have asked somebody at the beginning of 2005 who the best clay courter in the world is, there wouldn't have been a lot of players who would have denied Guillermo Coria that title. So because of that, Nadal was going into a big battle against Coria. He's beaten him in Monte Carlo before. So it's not like, okay, Nadal's come up and he had a lucky shot or a lucky win against Coria. Coria by then knew him, knew how to play him. and both made that match incredibly exciting. Uh, what made this match a little bit special as well was the fact that Nadal had an injury on his right hand. It was probably a blister that has really swollen up, and you could see a big tear on his left hand on his finger. At some point, he got treatment during the match because he had that injury, and you could see all the flesh and everything coming out on that finger. So it was a little bit scary to imagine that he was playing for almost 5 hours with that hand, and the pain he must have gone through in order to prevail in that match. That was really that must have been excruciating. And given the fact that he's pulled through and he's managed to win that match is something like setting the tone for what was supposed to be coming in the upcoming years, and why he's established himself to be such an incredibly strong tennis player, but especially on clay. One more thing that made the final even more dramatic was the fact that after 2 sets all, in the 5th set, Coria was 3-love up with 2 breaks, and he was almost 4-love up. He had points to go 4-love up, and he almost managed to pull it through, but he didn't. And even though he was 3-love up in the 5th set, he did not manage to close out that match. And Nadal has won it in a tiebreak in the 5th set. So this is number 17B. Number 17A is also the Rome final 1 year after that, in the 2006 Rome final. So at that time we have Rafa Nadal against Roger Federer final. Now when we fast forward 1 year, from the Rome final 2005 to the Rome final 2006, we have a completely different setup, because we have in Roger Federer the multiple Grand Slam champion. By that time, the multiple Grand Slam champion means he's won 7 Grand Slam titles. He's been the world number 1 for more than 2 years by that time. So he had a very, very firm and strong grip at the top of the world rankings. And you have on the other side Rafa Nadal, who is still just 19 years old, and he's already a Grand Slam champion. He's won the French Open in 2005. He's proven himself in the Masters events on clay. He's proven himself at the French Open, and in 2006 he's already won the Monte Carlo Masters for a second straight time, and he's beaten Federer in that final. So by that time they've played 5 times against each other already, and out of those 5 times Nadal has won 4. And actually that single match he's lost against Roger Federer, that was in the 2005 Miami final, where he was 2 sets to go up. So he most probably should have won that match as well. For Roger, it was a clear case that he was struggling against a very physical player, somebody who could run down balls like nobody else, somebody who can hit through the court with his forehand like almost nobody else. So he clearly felt that he had to put everything into that match and show this man that he can beat him on clay as well. He clearly wanted to win the French Open. That was a very clear goal of Roger Federer, and he knew that this new wonderkind in Nadal would be a very strong obstacle. So after having lost the Monte Carlo final again to Nadal in 4 sets 3 weeks prior to the Rome final, at that time he had Tony Roche as his coach. And Tony Roche is part of the Rod Laver, Ken Rosewall generation. He's part of the great Aussies. Although Roche hasn't won as many titles as Laver or Rosewall, but he was right up there with the big boys. He was away with a lot of injuries, in fact. So nonetheless, Tony Roche was a former French Open champion. As an Australian player back in the 60s, that meant something. So it was a good thing for Federer to have Tony Roche at that point on his side when he was playing Nadal. and God, that really helped him. I think that was Roger Federer's best performance against Nadal on a clay court ever. He was serving well, he was hitting his forehand well, the backhand held up well, the backhand drive as well, and the slice particularly well. He was very effective with it and pushing a lot of backhand slices to Nadal's backhand. And the volley was on, so he was doing everything right. And he won the first set on a tiebreak. He lost the second in a tiebreak, so it could have gone either way. Nadal was maybe a little bit lucky to get back into that. In the in the third set, Federer was maybe fading just a little bit, and Nadal capitalized with one break. He took the third set. In the fourth, Roger Federer really woke up and was very strong. Won the fourth with 2 breaks. He was serving first in the fifth, and he was actually 3-1 up. He was 4-1 up with a break. At one point, you really felt that okay, he has Nadal on the ropes and he's gonna pull it off. But again, this time, like the year before, when Coria was 3-love up, and this time Federer was 4-1 up. He's managed to get back to 4-all. Then each player was holding their serves, and at 5-6, when Nadal was serving, Federer was playing a very good game at the beginning. He was 15-40 up, so he had 2 match points. And on both occasions, Nadal was holding firm in the rally. Federer pulled the trigger, especially in the first point at the 15-40 point. He's put a forehand just way too long, and at 30-40, he had a pretty good and clear shot to finish the match off, and he's put it wide. So Nadal came back to deuce, and he managed to get into the tiebreak. Now in the tiebreak, that was again a thriller, because Federer was doing all the things that he needed to be doing, and he was doing them right. He was 5-3 up in the tiebreak, so again 2 points away, and he's lost the next 4 points. And by that, of course, that means that Nadal has won the tiebreak 7-5. In this match, in the Rome final, as he's beaten Federer, this was his 53rd straight victory on a clay court. And through this victory, he has equaled Guillermo Vilas's record of 53 straight matches won on clay, which was established back in 1977. So as you see, this was a historic point or a historic moment in Nadal's career as well, because if he would have lost this match, then he couldn't have equaled Vilas's record, and he could not have gone on to win 81 straight matches on clay, which is a record in the men's game. In the women's game, we have Chris Evert with 125 matches straight won on clay, but that's a story for a different day. So given these 2 matches and given the context, it was not a Grand Slam match, but given the fact that back in the day it was played best of 5, and the quality of tennis that was produced in those 2 matches was staggering, I think even though these 2 matches are not Grand Slam matches, they definitely deserve to be on the list of the 20 greatest matches of all time, at least on my list. I've studied my own list, went through it a little bit, and I realized I have 3 matches only which are not Grand Slam matches, which I've picked and put on my list. So stay tuned and try to figure out, maybe you can think ahead, which match do you think was not a Grand Slam match and definitely needs to be or should be on this list. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next week.